This is the second half of my Sony A1 initial impressions video. If you missed the first half, I'll put a link to it here and in the description below. It's kind of important because in the first half, I actually took the camera out into the world and used it. And I kind of showed you what it's capable of. So it's kind of important, if you haven't seen that, to go watch that. This video is going to be very different. This video is going to be just me sitting right here among all these flowers, and there's little hummingbirds flying everywhere. I'm in the state of Washington right now, leading some eagle workshops, and it's been fantastic. Yet another great opportunity to put the A1 to the test. So this video is going to be me just telling you what I think about the camera, what I like about it, what I don't like about it. And just remember that nobody pays me to do this. I'm not a Sony ambassador. I'm not endorsed by Sony. They don't pay me to do this. They don't give me any free cameras or any free gear. I buy all of this stuff myself because I love to go take pictures of wild animals, specifically birds. With that said, this is quite easily the best camera I have ever had the pleasure of using. I now know why they call it the A1. It is the one camera that can do it all, and it does it all amazingly well. You can shoot 8K video, which I haven't actually done yet. You can do 4K, 120 frames, 60 frames, 30 frames, 24 frames. You can do 1080p, all the way up to 240 frames per second, 8x slow motion. And all of the video that I have captured with this is just simply glorious, especially with this lens, 200 to 600, because of the throw here is so small. You can go from 200 to 600 in a blink, and in video, it's just fantastic. For stills, it's a high-res camera. Everybody knows that. 50 megapixels. The images that have come out of it are just absolutely glorious. Some of the best that I've seen. And it's high speed. You can get up to 30 frames per second. There are some caveats with that. And I don't shoot it a full 30 frames per second because one of the caveats is you have to allow the camera to release even if it's not in focus. There's ways that you can set it up to release on focus, on balance emphasis, on just releasing at all times, and I don't do that. I set it up somewhere in the middle on a balance emphasis, and I've found that I get around between 20 and 30 frames per second, 25, 28, sometimes 30. It just really depends on the situation. But it seems to handle everything that I've thrown at it amazingly well. And you might be wondering what took me so long to actually make this second video. Well, a lot of things. I'm in the middle of completing a huge project, my Osprey book. I've been doing a lot of workshops in Florida and now here in the state of Washington. But at the same time, I've been wanting to make sure I put as much time into this camera as possible so that I know exactly what it's capable of, where it might have issues. I think that's important, to spend a lot of time with the camera before you start telling people how good or bad it is. Some of these people that just use it for a day or two and then kind of write it off as what it is, I don't think that's a very accurate way to do these things. So I think you need to spend a lot of time with these cameras, and that's exactly what I've done. The very first thing I'd like to talk about is the autofocus system on the A1. It is by far the best autofocus I have ever used. And everything that I'm going to say is just based off of my using the camera. I don't have any kind of intel on any way that it works. I'm just kind of basing this off of my own experience. The way that I have the camera set up now and the way that I use it, it appears to have 3 autofocus systems working simultaneously, so all at the same time. When one doesn't work, it automatically jumps to another and to another and so forth. So, and again, it's kind of a redundant system that rarely ever fails. It's quite magical once you use it and you see it. And it doesn't really work it doesn't appear to work in any specific order. So when I say, it might hunt for this first or look for this first, that's just my guess. So with bird eye autofocus, that's a big one. It will actually grab the bird's eye on a perched bird, a flying bird, flying sideways, flying towards you, not flying away from you because it will only see the tail. And it seems to do that about 60% of the time, not 100%. And that's okay, because if you have it set up right, the times that it doesn't see the eye, it will automatically default to the bird's head, and it will put a focus area or a focus frame around the bird's head. And then if the bird is close enough for it to see the eye, it will also then drop back to the eye or back to the head. And it does this so fast, it's really hard to imagine, and it's just something that you have to see. If it can't find the eye and it can't find the head, it will then lock onto the body. If it can't find the body, then it will do more of a clustered zone type focus to where little teeny focus points are all over your subject, like all the time. It's like just kind of bouncing all over it really, really quickly. And then it will go back either to locking onto the head or the body or finding the eye. And it's really interesting to note that it will only look for the bird eye in the focus area that you have chosen. So if you have a small focus area, like a tiny little pinpoint, it will only search for the eye in that small area. And some people might say, oh, that's bad, but it's actually a really good thing because you can control where it's actually looking for the eye. And then once it actually finds the eye, you can move your subject anywhere in the frame and it won't let go. So it really kind of changes the way that you shoot, or the way that I shoot. I was always shooting everything dead center because that's where all of the focus points were before, like on DSLR cameras. But when this one, as soon as it grabs the eye, it locks onto the eye, you can then recompose your shot to give yourself space in the frame. For instance, if the bird was on a low branch and you knew it was going to jump up, you could recompose and pull the bird down to the bottom of the frame so that when it threw its wings up, you wouldn't clip the wings, you'd get the whole shot in. And then of course at the speeds that it captures stuff, you literally, when you're done, you're looking at hundreds of shots that are in perfect focus, the image quality is outstanding, and you're really just looking for the one, like at least me, the one position of wings that is the most pleasing. And so the culling process is even different. I don't even look to see if they're in focus anymore because 99% of the time they are. I'm looking for the actual composition that I want first, and then I'll grab like 5 frames around it and then I'll pick the best one out of that. It's really, really fascinating. And I'll show you some stuff here on the back of the camera. I'm gonna go ahead and set it up and show you how that focus area works, because I can set it up to display the area where it focused in a box on the back of the camera. And I'll go ahead and set up and show you that now. All right, forgive the poor image quality here. I just want you to pay attention to this green box because that's where the camera is actually acquiring focus. And you can see here, it's crystal clear and sharp right on this eagle's head. And it's actually keeping that box on the eagle's head as it flies near. And this is a tricky situation too, because a lot of cameras will jump around to the oyster beds because of the contrast there. But the A1 seems to just lock right on to the bird's head, and it's like, it's glorious. And now it has, because the bird is closer, it can actually sense and see the eye. And now it's jumping right to the bird's eye and it's keeping track on the bird's eye. And this is a series of bursts. So there were times when I stopped actually focusing the camera and then reacquired focus. It's just a habit that I do. It has nothing to do with the camera itself. And you can see here, it's still tracking. Oh wow, look at that eagle. That's amazing. You can still see it's tracking this bird's eye as it's flying right in, and it jumps around a little bit here and there to the head or to the side. But when you actually go in and look, it's always really sharp focus on the bird's face. As you can see, it just seems to lock on and doesn't really seem to let go. It's not perfect. There are times when it does miss, but when most of the times, like I said, like around 99% of the times, it's just flawless. I mean, look at this. It's pretty impressive stuff. Even as the eagle came in here slowly and landed on these oysters, it managed to keep focus on the bird's eye. And even when his eyes were closed, you can see, that's funny. But that's the cool thing about having so many frames. I don't have to keep the one where his eyes were closed. But in general, it just keeps focus on them at all times, as you can see here. Didn't miss one out of, I don't know how many shots that was, maybe 100 or 50 or 60, I don't know, I didn't even count. But it kept the bird in focus the whole time. All right, it's really impressive to see, especially with an eagle coming head on. You know, a lot of cameras struggle with acquiring focus and keeping focus when the subject is moving really fast towards you head on. And just also note that those were taken with the 600 f4, not the 200 to 600, but the 200 to 600 works just as well for the autofocus. I just have the 600 f4, and it is, of course, a lot better than this, so I like to use that over that. So the actual, something I don't really ever talk about, the ergonomics of this camera. I've never really been one to be picky about ergonomics of a camera, because I always understand that sometimes things have to be a little uncomfortable for them to work right. And I have found that over the years that each camera is a little bit different and your hand basically kind of molds to it eventually. I have no problems with the ergonomics of this camera. I think it feels good. Even without the grip, it's just feels like a good camera in my hands. The actual image quality that I'm getting out of the A1 is the best image quality I've seen from any Sony camera. The colors look, I mean, beautiful. They look just like whatever it was you just took a picture of. So I find myself spending very, very little time doing anything post-processing because I almost nail it perfect in camera all of the time, thanks to all of the tools that are going on and all the live feedback. There's all these bees right here. I don't know if they're coming out, but they're buzzing around all over me. But thanks to all of the live feedback that you get in the viewfinder, it makes it much easier to get pictures perfect in camera all of the time. Battery life seems to be about the same as any other camera I've used. The only time the battery goes really quickly is if you're shooting all video. It will go through batteries very fast if you're just shooting video. And again, the video is just unbelievable, and I'll have a ton of content coming up soon on my channel showing video and stills from this camera, because again, it's now my favorite camera, and it's going to be hard to have me shoot anything else. Oh yeah, the few things I don't like about this camera, and there's only a couple. The actual button that they have assigned to record video is right here. I don't know if you can see that. And I find it hard to reach. I can get to it, but it's kind of in the way here. I don't like it, and that's okay, because they give you the ability to change the shutter button right here on top to record video. And that's what I've done, is I've used this to start and stop recording my video. The other thing that can be problematic, and it's happening to a lot of people, is they're referring to it as EVF blackout. So the electronic viewfinder right here is what you see, when you bring your eye to the camera. It lets you see what's going on outside in the real world. And there's a little sensor right here underneath. I don't know if you can see that. That little sensor is what enables this EVF to come on and come off. So when you get close, it trips the sensor and it turns it on. And when you pull your eye away, it then tells the EVF to shut off to save battery. The problem is, if this gets direct sunlight, it seems to kind of shut off the EVF completely, and you'll go to put your eye to the screen and it's just black, and you can't really seem to get it to work, and people are, of course, are missing shots because of it. So in my experience, it's when it gets direct sunlight, and that can be problematic, but there's a couple things that you can do. For one, what I do is I just make sure that this sensor is not in direct sunlight. I stand usually with the sun to my back, and I'll just keep the sensor facing away. And then when I bring it to my eye, it's okay. That has pretty much eliminated the problem entirely for me. And I know some people are going to complain about that, especially at the price point of this camera, that it shouldn't have any flaws at all. And I don't know if that's something that Sony can fix with a firmware update or not. But another trick that people are doing is they're taking a little teeny piece of tape and they're covering just the far left third of this sensor. I have not done that. I have a friend that has, and he said it has fixed the issue for him. The only thing that I would be wary about if you're going to cover that sensor is make sure that the EVF isn't on at all times, because if it is, you're kind of looking back at the old computer screens. There's no screensaver in here, so if it's on at all times, any overlays that you have on top of that screen inside will most likely get burned into the screen like an old plasma television. So if you're going to tape it, make sure you don't tape it so that it's on all of the time. Make sure that it still shuts off and on when you're using it. Other than that, I have to say this is, again, the best camera I have ever used. I love it. And it's helping me capture some stuff that I didn't capture before. It's changed the way that I approach shooting wildlife in multiple ways. But I think two things are really, really important takeaways here. One is the camera is a ton of fun to use. Two, the most important one, is the camera gives me confidence in what I'm doing, because I'm not worried about the camera malfunctioning. I know the camera is going to do its job, and I'm never taking a series of shots and going, oh man, I hope those are in focus, because I know they will be. Instead, it's like this. I take a whole bunch of shots and go, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go back and see that and see what I captured, because there's going to be some stuff in there that happened so fast that I didn't even know about, and it's all going to look perfect. So the camera gives me a huge boost of confidence knowing that it's the right tool for the job, for what I do. And that's about it. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. I'm just kind of going all off the cuff here, off the top of my head. Let me know what you think. And until next time, I'll see you later.